Dr. Ethan Miles had always believed that medicine was more than science. It was a calling, a quiet promise to stand between life and death and fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. At 38 years old, he was one of the most respected emergency physicians at St. Vincent Medical Center in Chicago. He had seen almost everything: gunshot wounds, heart attacks, overdoses, and trauma that could break even the toughest soul. But nothing had prepared him for what was coming. It was a cold November morning, the kind where the wind cut through the heaviest jackets. The hospital doors slid open every few seconds as patients rushed in coughing, shivering, or crying in pain. The flu season had hit early, stretching the hospital to its limits. Nurses moved like shadows, and doctors carried dark circles under their eyes from sleepless nights. Ethan was sipping what felt like his 50th cup of coffee when his pager beeped sharply. Trauma incoming, ETA 2 minutes, male, 12 years old, unresponsive. He didn't waste a second. Throwing his coffee aside, he ran toward Trauma Room 3. The sterile smell of disinfectant intensified as he pushed the door open. Nurses were already preparing equipment: oxygen masks, IV lines, defibrillator pads. The ambulance doors slammed open outside, and two paramedics rushed in with a small boy on a stretcher. His skin was pale, lips bluish, chest barely moving. "What happened?" Ethan asked, gloving up. "Severe asthma attack," the paramedic said. "Collapsed in the school hallway. No response to initial treatment." Ethan leaned over the boy. "Hey, buddy, can you hear me? Stay with me, okay? What's his name?" "Lucas," the paramedic replied. The boy's eyes fluttered weakly, then closed. Ethan felt a familiar ache in his chest. He had treated hundreds of kids, but something about Lucas felt different. Maybe it was his small size, his fragile frame, or the fear on his mother's face as she rushed in right behind the stretcher. "Please," she cried, "save him. He's all I have." Ethan nodded firmly. "I'll do everything I can." A race against time. Lucas crashed. 1 second his chest moved, the next, it didn't. The heart monitor flatlined. "Code blue!" Ethan shouted. Nurses moved instantly. Ethan started chest compressions, counting loudly and rhythmically. 1, 2, 3. "Come on, Lucas." Sweat formed on his forehead. The room felt too bright, too sterile, too silent except for the alarm's continuous beep. "Charge to 50, he ordered. The defibrillator whined as it charged. "Clear." Lucas's body jerked slightly as the shock hit him. The monitor showed a wavering line, then flat again. Ethan didn't stop. He switched to manual breathing, squeezing the bag rhythmically. Nurses supported him silently, everyone waiting for a miracle but afraid to say it out loud. While, after what felt like an eternity, the monitor finally beeped. Weakly, but it beeped. A heartbeat. Small, fragile, but real. A collective exhale filled the room. Ethan stepped back, breathing heavily. "He's not safe yet," he warned, "but he's fighting." Lucas was taken to the ICU. His mother hugged Ethan so tightly he could barely breathe. "You saved him," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "He saved himself. I just helped him get there." But deep down, he knew the fight wasn't over. The past that never let go. When Ethan went home that night, exhaustion wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. His apartment was neat but lonely. No kids' toys, no messy living room, no family photos. Only one picture sat on his desk: a young Ethan with his younger sister Emily. Emily died when she was 10, asthma, the same age as Lucas, the same disease, the same helplessness. Ethan had been 12 when he held his sister's hand in the back of their father's car, watching her gasp for air as they raced toward the hospital. By the time they arrived, it was too late. That night changed him forever. He promised himself he would never let another child die in front of him if he could help it. But sometimes, even promises weren't enough. A new storm begins. Lucas remained in a critical condition for days. Ethan visited him every chance he got. Lucas's small chest still rose and fell with the help of machines, and tubes covered his arms like vines. Ethan sat beside him and whispered, as if Lucas could hear through the sedation. "Hang in there, buddy. You're stronger than you think." One morning, as Ethan checked Lucas's vitals, a nurse rushed into the room. "Dr. Miles, there's an outbreak situation," she said. "ER is overwhelmed. The new respiratory virus cases just shot up." Respiratory virus. Children were the most affected. Ethan's breath caught. He knew what that meant. Chicago was on the edge of a medical crisis. The hospital under siege. The ER turned chaotic. Stretchers lined the hallway. Children cried. Parents begged. Nurses were running out of oxygen supplies. Ethan worked nonstop. 14 hours, then 18, then 24. His voice grew hoarse, hands trembling. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Every breath mattered. Every child mattered. At 3 a.m., he collapsed into a chair. A nurse gently touched his shoulder. "Ethan," she whispered, "you need rest." "I can't," he murmured. "What if someone needs me?" "You're human," she said softly. "Even heroes rest." He looked away. The word hero felt heavy. He didn't want medals, praise, or attention. He wanted children to live. That was all. A turning point. 5 days after Lucas arrived, Ethan was reviewing reports when an ICU nurse called him. "Doctor, Lucas is waking up." Ethan froze. He rushed to the ICU, heart pounding. Lucas's eyes were half open. His small hand twitched. "Hey," Ethan said gently. "Welcome back." Lucas's mother was crying softly beside the bed. Lucas blinked, confused. "Did I die?" he whispered. Ethan smiled. "Not today, kid. Not on my watch." Lucas managed a weak smile. "You saved me." Ethan shook his head again. "You fought harder than anyone I've ever seen." Lucas whispered, "I want to be a doctor like you." Ethan's throat tightened. For a moment, he couldn't speak. "That would make me very proud," he said finally. The breaking point. But the crisis wasn't over. The virus spread faster. More children fell ill. Supplies ran low. Doctors burned out. One night, a 7-year-old girl named Hannah came in. She was wheezing badly, eyes wide with fear. Ethan held her tiny hand. "You're going to be okay," he said calmly. But inside, doubt gnawed at him. Seconds later, Hannah stopped breathing. They tried everything. Ethan fought harder than he ever had, but she didn't return. He stared at the monitor as the flat line stared back at him. Emily. Lucas. Hannah. The memories blurred into one painful mix. He walked out quietly and sat alone on the staircase behind the ER. His hands shook, his eyes burned, his chest felt tight. He had saved dozens, but he had lost one. And sometimes one was enough to break a doctor. A fellow physician, Dr. Rachel Carter, found him sitting there. "You did everything," she said. "I promised myself I'd never let a child die again," he whispered. "A promise made by a child," she said gently. "But you are a man now, a doctor, and doctors carry the weight of the world even though we are human." He looked up at her. "How do you keep going?" She sat beside him. "By remembering the ones we saved, not the ones we lost. Because the ones we save, they go on to live. They laugh. They grow. And their lives are bigger than our pain." Her words stayed with him. The rise after the fall. The next morning, Ethan walked back to work with a new sense of resolve. He couldn't bring back the ones he lost, but he could honor them by saving the ones in front of him. For weeks, the hospital continued fighting the outbreak. Ethan led teams, trained new doctors, made impossible decisions, and stood strong even when others fell apart. Slowly, the curve began to drop. Fewer admissions, more recoveries, more hope. Until finally, it was over. A visit that changed everything. 3 months later, spring arrived. The bright sunlight washed the hospital lobby in gold. Ethan was writing his report when he heard small footsteps running toward him. "Dr. Miles." He looked up. Lucas, healthier, stronger, smiling brightly. He ran into Ethan's arms. Mom said I could come visit you. His mother walked behind him, carrying a small box wrapped in blue paper. We wanted to thank you, she said. You don't need to, but we want to. Lucas handed him the box. Ethan opened it. Inside was a hand-drawn picture of Lucas and Ethan standing side by side wearing doctor coats, both smiling. At the top, in a child's handwriting, were the words, "My hero, my doctor, my inspiration." Ethan's chest tightened again, but this time with pride, not pain. He knelt to Lucas's height. You know, he said softly, I think you're going to be a better doctor than me someday. Lucas grinned. I'll try. Legacy of a Silent Warrior. That night, Ethan placed the drawing next to his photo of Emily. Emily, he whispered, I kept my promise as best as I could. He knew he would still lose patience. He knew he would still break down sometimes. But he also knew that every life he saved mattered. Every child he helped breathe again carried a piece of his heart forward. Doctors weren't superheroes. They were warriors, silent warriors who fought battles no one else could see. And Ethan Miles would keep fighting. For Emily, for Lucas, for Hannah, for every child who came through those hospital doors. Because that was his calling, his purpose, his life.